Abby and I's presentation is on Pepperberg et al. The study took place in 1987 at Northwestern University. The study was performed by Irene Pepperberg. The approach used in Pepperberg is the learning approach, which proposes that behavior is acquired by means of learning experiences. There are many assumptions with reference to the learning approach. For example, the approach believes that all behavior is learned, and the learning approach emphasizes that everything is learned and it cannot be inherited. This idea supports the nurture side in the debate of nature versus nurture. The learning approach also states psychology should focus on more observable behavior that can be measured objectively, rather than focusing on the mind. Lastly, the learning approach believes in focusing on observable behavior rather than mental concepts, and it explains behavior in terms of learning. Some main ideas of the learning approach include classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and social learning. There are many strengths to the learning approach. The data is objective due to the fact that it gathers observable data and it rejects the role of unobservable cognitive factors. It provides a simple explanation of how people and animals learn, which is through the use of association, consequence, or limitation. It also seeks to explain how mental illnesses are acquired, and the learning approach can help to develop effective treatments for such illnesses. However, there are some weaknesses to the learning approach. Learning is much more than the original behaviorist view. Cognitive factors cannot be ignored. In addition to this, it is reductionist because behavior is influenced by many more factors than experience. The psychology being investigated in Pepperberg et al. Includes cognitive psychology and learning psychology. Under the cognitive side of Pepperberg, the question posed is the abstract cognitive skill of conceptual categorization of items as either same or different present in other animals? Other animals refer to Alex, the participant who is an African gray parrot. Under the learning side of psychology in Pepperberg, a reinforcement schedule, also known as operant conditioning, was used in order to create associations between the object or category, as well as the label to be learned. The model rival technique, which was posed after Bandura, applied observable learning principles. Many studies previous to Pepperberg have proven that non-human primates have the cognitive capacity to express abstract ideas, such as the concept of same and different. However, there is a significant debate relating to studies that examine the concepts of same and different. And many researchers believe that this skill is not seen in non-human subjects. Previous research from Premack, an additional psychologist, showed that pigeons are capable of understanding the concept of same, but they do not understand the concept of different. As for Alex the bird, He had extensive experience being a test subject from previous studies and training. Alex was already able to name a variety of colors and shapes, as well as different kinds of materials. While the aim was not announced clearly, Pepperberg did state, the present study was therefore undertaken to see if an avian subject could use vocal labels to demonstrate symbolic comprehension of the concepts of same and different. The avian subject referring to Alex the bird. Here is an image of Alex figuring out the similarities and differences between two plastic keys. He was later able to distinguish that the left key was much larger than the right key, and it was green. He also could tell that the key on the right was red and smaller than the green key. While the hypothesis was also not exactly stated, Pepperberg implied that she was able to teach Alex to understand the concept of same, in addition to the concept of different. The research method was a case study, and the case study involved around 26 months of testing. The participant was one African gray parrot, and his name was Alex. And while this study's duration was 26 months, Pepperberg had been working with Alex since 1977. Alex the parrot was considered an opportunity sample because they had been working together for so long. Here is an image of Irene Pepperberg and Alex the parrot. As you can see, Alex is learning the difference between shapes and colors, such as green and blue, and the shapes of squares and circles. During the day, for about 8 hours, Alex had free access to all lab areas while his trainers were present. However, during sleeping hours, he was housed in a wire cage. Alex was very entertained with a variety of toys provided by the lab, and he was fed a sustainable and nutritious diet. When Alex requested other food and toys, his request was promptly fulfilled. This proves that Irene Pepperberg used an animal for her study, and she was ethically moral about how she cared for Alex the bird. In this next video, you will be able to see Alex and Pepperberg in action.
Alex, what matter?
Whoa.
That's right. How many?
2.
That's right. You're a good boy. No,
Can I go
sweetie.
back?
No, you can't go back yet. You gotta.
You want some water?
All right. Do you want some water, or are you just asking to interrupt? You're just asking to interrupt. I know.
Go back?
I know. Okay. Look. What color bigger? What color bigger? Green. Oh, you're a good boy. Okay, Alex, look. Look what I got for you. Hey, look. Look at all these neat toys. Look. Hey, look, can you tell me on the tray how many green block? Green block.
2.
Good parrot. 2 green block. 2. Good parrot. One of the things Alex doesn't have is a knee-jerk response to the types of objects that you present him. He can look at 2 objects and answer several different types of questions about those objects, or he can look at a novel collection of items and answer questions about that collection. What this shows us is that he really understands what those questions mean.
Thanks, Alex.
Teacher.
You're
That's
right.
right,
Good
teacher.
boy.
Alex describing objects. Alex saying, Polly want more than a cracker.
Is what you want? I want banana. Carrot.
Good birdie.
I want corn. Soft corn.
Soft corn, good parrot. We've got rock corn, that's dried corn, and we've got soft corn too.
Cold.
It's cold, yes, it's cold. It's from the refrigerator.
Go pick up corn.
Well, no, I'm not going to pick up the corn you threw down.
Using his beak, he could tell you what matter objects were made of.
Rock.
Good boy.
Rock.
What matter?
What matter, Alex?
Wood.
Wood,
That's
good
right.
boy.
Wool.
That's right. Whoa.
And amazingly, on a tray, he could tell you the number of squares from the number of balls, the number of each color.
How many blue balls?
4.
Four is right.
Good parrot.
He's choosing from among all the possible answers. Remember, he sees this object. If he was giving a knee-jerk response, he would say paper every time he saw this thing.
He tried to restrain himself when student parrots like this one got it wrong.
What matter?
Then Alex would interject with his equivalent of duh.
What matter?
Wood.
As parrots go, he was simply Einstein. When we were there, even Einstein got hungry.
Well, you're the boy.
Want to go eat dinner?
I know. It's time to eat dinner, sweetie. I know it's time, but we have to do one more chore, okay?
And then Alex declared it was over.
Want to go back?
You want to go back?
And now, somewhere in parrot heaven, the angels are marveling at what God
You can do this. Ultimately, Pepperberg's focus during Pepperberg et al. Was the model-rival approach. The model-rival approach is based on the concept of modeling by Bandura, aka the Bobo the Clown experiment. The model-rival approach is where one human acts as the trainer for the second human. The trainer presents the second person with objects and asks questions about them. They then provide rewards and praise for correct responses. Alex watches this interaction, and the second human acts as a model for Alex. Alex is then considered a rival for the trainer's attention. If Alex responds to the trainer's questions correctly, then he will receive rewards and praise instead of the model human. At this point, the roles of the trainer and the model are reversed. Continuous reinforcement is used at this point in the study, where rewards are given for the correct response, and scolding, such as stating no and taking the object away from Alex, are used. Some of the training materials were shapes, such as triangles or squares, colors, such as red, green, or blue, and material, such as rawhide and wood. This next video shows the model-rival approach being used on a parrot named Jonathan, as he learns the differences between the color yellow and fruits such as an apple, as well as vegetables, such as a carrot.
Qual material? Papel. Muito bem, papel. Papel. Suzane, que é isso?
Apple.
Apple. Muito bem, good girl. Apple.
Jonathan, o que é isso? Isso, Apple. Muito bem.
What color?
Yellow.
Yellow. Good girl. Yellow.
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 Jonathan, what color? What color? What color? What color? Maurice, what color?
Yellow.
Isso.
Yellow.
Muito bem, yellow. Cenoura.
Não. Isso não é cenoura. O que é isso?
Apple.
Apple. Muito bem. Apple.
Apple. Jonathan, o que é isso? O que é isso, Jonathan? O que é isso?
Cenoura.
Muito bem.
Cenoura.
Muito bem.
Jonathan, o que é isso? O que é isso? Não, o que é isso? Cenoura.
Muito bem.
Cenoura. Good boy.
The independent variable was whether the object is familiar or novel, aka not familiar, and the dependent variable was the response to the questions such as what's the same, as well as what's different. Here is a picture of Alex figuring out the similarities and differences between a yellow pentagon and a blue circle. As for the procedure, in each trial, Alex was shown two objects that could possibly differ in shape, color, or material. In some trials, the trainer asked Alex, "What's the same?" and "What's different?" Researchers were only interested in the same and different questions and their data, but the researchers would also ask Alex other questions to prevent boredom. Such questions included, what color, how many, and what shape? The object would be either familiar or novel, not familiar, to Alex. And Alex would give the trainer a response to each question, regardless of whether or not the data was recorded. The correct response would be for Alex to name the categories that were the same or different. And the trials would either involve familiar objects or novel, not familiar objects. The principal trainer was present during the trials, but when Alex was being tested, the trainer sat facing away from Alex, and the trainer was not able to view the objects. After each trial, the trainer repeated the vocalization out loud. If the answer was right the first time, Alex was rewarded with praise and was given the object that he was tested on. And if the answer was incorrect, he was promptly told no, and the object that he was tested on was removed, while the trainers turned their heads away. This correction procedure was repeated until the correct response was given. During the procedure, the number of errors were recorded. This study was delayed in order for Alex to master saying matter involving what type of material the object was, such as wood or wool. Alex vocalized matter as mama. The testing procedure was conducted by secondary trainers who had not worked with him on learning the same and different concept. Also, materials were paired from a selection that was given to a student. This student was in no way related to the study. During the training phase, Alex was exposed to a limited set of materials, and many novel items were introduced during this testing phase. When Alex got bored, he would stop vocalizations and he would begin to preen. Preening referring to fixing his feathers. The quantitative data was the number of correct responses. In the first trials for familiar objects, Alex answered correctly 69.7% of the time. This was only counted if the first vocalization was correct, and the response was not counted if Alex did not respond or if he requested a different objects. For the familiar objects, Alex responded correctly 76.7% of the time overall. As for the novel objects, Alex responded to the first trials correctly, 82.3% of the time, and he was correct 85% of the time during the novel trials overall. Training for Alex to acquire color and shape labels took 4 months. Training for Alex to acquire mama, previously stated, took 9 months. Researchers were asking, why did Alex score better with novel items rather than with familiar items? Researchers did suggest that motivation was a factor because he was rewarded with the objects being tested on for each correct response. In conclusion, this study proved that parrots do have the potential to understand the concept of same and different in relation to objects shown at the time of Alex's testing. They can learn to respond to verbal questions, and parrots are able to recognize different categories. Symbolic representation is not exclusive to primates. As for the evaluation, there are many strengths to the Pepperberg study. The lab environment provides a high level of control, which increases validity. Standardized procedures allow for replication. This increases reliability of the study. Lastly, for strengths, the study provides valid research with limited researcher bias, which is due to the many controls included. However, Pepperberg does have its weaknesses. Alex was the only parrot used, and this means that it has a low generalizability because Alex could have been unique and he could have had skills that do not represent the other populations of African gray parrots. Also, the lab setting called for a low ecological validity because it was not Alex's natural habitat. What were the study's ethical factors? Well, Alex was well treated during the study, and he was well fed and he was free from harm. Alex had toys that kept him from boredom, and Alex was allowed to roam the lab during the day while trainers were present. However, Pepperberg et al. Did have some unethical factors. The lab setting was categorized as an artificial setting, and the study participated in using non-naturalistic behaviors. Alex was also caged during sleeping hours, which would not have accurately represented the space that he would have had in his natural habitat. Lastly, Alex's species is prone to self-harming when put in captivity, which Alex was. In regard to using animals during a study, Pepperberg only used one parrot and managed to get the information that Pepperberg needed to conduct the experiment. The rewards were used appropriately, and Alex was not deprived of food when he answered a question incorrectly. Adverse conditioning was not used, and Alex was given extra food if he requested it. Also, Alex was only caged during sleeping hours, and Alex was not deprived of a spacious environment during the day. In regards to the nature versus nurture debate, Pepperberg et al. Is in favor of the nurture side of the nature versus nurture debate. Alex was taught during the study, and he learned through both operant and observational learning. Alex had been taught the use of labels because it was not something that came naturally or something that an African gray parrot can inherit. Is Pepperberg et al. Useful? This study is useful for people who need to train animals to perform certain tasks. For example, zookeepers can introduce new animals to their species by encouraging the alpha figures in the group to show the new animal which behaviors are acceptable. Thank you.